Hi everyone, it's George here, you're watching Mr. Shadow Boy, you're watching my channel. And I know I haven't uploaded much in the way of videos, been extremely busy yet again with clients. Certain things have been happening in my life that have been very positive, very great and just fucking awesome, really cool. So yeah, basically I've had a lot going on in my life. And don't worry, my series of folk magic and witchcraft will still be going. I will still be doing it. It's just finding the time to do it. Yeah. So anyway, today I want to do this video on this guy here, also known as the Green Man, the Jack in the Green, some sort of elements of paganism, also John Barleycorn, the Woodwose, the Green George. Now, all these names that I'm spewing out here, all these names that I'm saying, they are within themselves separate entities. For instance, the Jack in the Green of the festivals and the May Day festivals is completely different from the Green Man. However, in a lot of modern, particularly neo-pagan beliefs, they are sort of assimilated and put and rolled into one sort of entity, and these are just seen as different aspects of the Green Man in general. So I wanted to do a little bit about the Green Man. Nobody actually knows what he represents. He's normally found outside churches, and this is the interesting thing. People don't actually know who the Green, they don't actually know the meaning of the Green Man. There are a couple of ideas. However, we are not 100% certain of what the Green Man actually means and who he actually is. Nobody is actually sure. Now, there are a couple of sort of ideas about this, and there are many ideas, but I'm going to give just a couple, and, you guys can probably go and do your own research. Now, the first one, which is quite obvious as well, I think this is quite obvious. Also, my partner got me this for Yule, and it's beautiful, and I love it to bits, absolute bits. It's amazing. So beautiful. Sorry, look at that. But how stunning is he? Now, yeah, there are different ideas, and a lot of people think, and this is, I think this is quite obvious as well, that that's only a matter of personal view here, of like it looking quite obvious. Anyway, George, get to the point. A lot of people think that he is a remnant of older pagan beliefs, of the older pagan faith that was once on these islands. So a lot of people will see him as, perhaps a god of agriculture, perhaps a god of vegetation, a nature spirit, a god of nature. Now, as well, a lot of people there will be some people that will say, no, the Green Man is a spirit, and there will be some people that will say, no, the Green Man is a god. And, this is kind of, the Green Man is quite a weird one, because it's sort of, he is a very powerful spirit, so much so that people will also refer to him as a god. Will also see him, some people will see him as an older remnant of perhaps vegetation deities, with sort of farming and agriculture, maybe sacrifices would have been given to him in order to sort of sustain, in order to help the crops grow a lot more. So there's that idea within it there as well. So the idea of him being an older pagan god is there, and the church has basically sort of put that there as a reminder of sort of the old religion, if you will. As well, on top of churches, we have Sheila the Gigs. This is normally shown as a woman, basically with her hands inside her vagina, stretching it out, which is quite, graphic and, to a lot of people. However, to the, modern neo-pagan, they just see that as another element, another deity of, feminine sort of energies, feminine sort of powers. But again, you know, it's quite an unsure thing. Another thing people will say that you have various different types of green men as well. I have to say that, and green, you know, there are various different styles in which they come in, but you will have the green man where foliage is just coming out of the mouth and coming out of the nose, out of the eyes and out of the ears. And a lot of people will say as well that perhaps maybe that has been put there on churches to be a representation of purging out evil, of when you step out of a church, you know, when you go into a church, you are purging all this evil, you know, evil powers and all this evil energy out. So that's another idea. Another idea as well is that, and I find this quite interesting. A lot of people believe that the green man is basically a portrayal of Jesus within nature. So the idea of Christ, but Christ within nature. You know, this sort of, you know, cleave the wood, you know, pull the stone and I am there, you know, basically saying that Christ is found within everything and within nature. There also could be a mix-up between Christ and older vegetation pagan deities sort of mixed together. You know, we see paganism and Christianity throughout history as being mixed. For instance, the use of the Lord's Prayer to stop somebody being elf shot, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, and then we have this idea of the Jack in the Green. Now, where did the Jack in the Green come from? Where does the idea come from? The idea, well, not the idea, but the Jack in the Green itself is basically normally a man, particularly this is in Britain, who is dressed head to toe in foliage. And basically, you know, this is normally for May Day parades. Now, the Jack in the Green originated around the 16th to 17th century. There were Jack in the Greens popping up everywhere. And, you know, again, there is that idea that a lot of people believe this is a remnant of older pagan vegetation deities. For instance, I mean, even now we have the Jack in the Green in various sort of festivals. We have the Hastings Jack in the Green festival and parade, and throughout his process through the whole town village, and you know, sort of there are green men everywhere and Morris dancing, and there's all this sort of hype to try and hype the energy up. And then once he gets to the castle, he is ritualistically sacrificed to symbolise that vegetation deity, the spirit of vegetation, the spirit of nature, going into the earth and granting us summer. The Jack in the Green is highly associated with summer within a lot of pagan beliefs. Could you just hold this a minute, because the computer's really annoying me? Yeah, sorry. So, you know, he's also seen as well as a being or a spirit, or perhaps maybe a god to some people, of summer. You know, there's the idea that Jack in the Green is heavily associated now, particularly with neo-paganism. The Jack in the Green is associated with Beltane, and we have Beltane coming soon, and I can't wait because it's going to be awesome. But, you know, there's this, because he was put with the May Day parades and stuff like that from the 16th to 17th century, in modern neo-paganism, he is assimilated and associated heavily with Beltane, representing the spirit of nature coming back, coming back into this world. Also, sort of springtime as well, he is also seen as and known as the Green George. That's another name for him, and representing the spirit of spring. The idea of welcoming spring in. There's also an idea of, I'll carry on with the Sabbats. There's another, particularly in modern neo-paganism, he can also be seen as John Barleycorn, or the Slain King, who basically represents the sacrifices that have happened throughout the years within pagan faiths. So, you know, in the olden days, people would have been chosen and sacrificed to specific deities in order to please the gods and replenish the land. So that's what John Barleycorn represents. John Barleycorn is the spirit of every sacrifice that has happened throughout the pagan, within the pagan ways, particularly this island, Britain. So yeah, there's that idea there that he is also an aspect of the slain king, and that because he's a vegetation deity, we kill him at Lammas as well, and we give him back to the earth. We give him as a sacrifice to the gods, because of course after Lammas, the year wanes. The year starts, the nights start going longer. It starts getting colder and darker, and summer is gone. I really love summer. Also, there's this idea that the Jack in the Green is seen as a spirit of ecstasy, of euphoria as well. The idea that he is a festival spirit as well, I can see why that association is there. And, sorry, I'm just checking something. Right, okay, sorry, this is going to come into reference. So yeah, there's the idea of the Jack in the Green being sort of quite party-ish, the spirit of parties, the spirit of celebrations, of ecstasy, of euphoria, the spirit of sort of this sort of party and festival spirit, which I could totally see. A lot of people will also see the Jack in the Green as quite Dionysian, having sort of similar connotations with Dionysus, the Greek god of theatre, ecstasy, wine. He is among many other things as well. But yeah, there's that sort of connotation with him being similar to Dionysus. And the idea of this, the idea of him being a party sort of spirit, a party spirit and a spirit of ecstasy and euphoria and stuff like that, comes from a book called The Golden Bow, by Sir James Fraser. Now this book has actually got 12 volumes to it. It's between 1890 and 1915, and in The Golden Bow he speaks about it's a really interesting book, it is, and it's where a lot of not all of it, but it's where some of modern paganism elements come from. We have the idea of the Holly King and the Oak King. This is mentioned within this book, and the idea of the Jack in the Green being a spirit of ecstasy, of euphoria, comes from this book, and is quite, sort of linked within Dionysus, and we can see that. So it is actually the idea of Jack in the Green being a spirit of ecstasy and euphoria is actually quite a new belief. However, I can totally see why Jack in the Green would be a spirit of ecstasy and euphoria and partying. Is seen within the May Day parades and the festivals, which is all about partying, drinking a bit too much, and having amounts of fun. Sorry. This is annoying now. Right. So yeah, there's that, sort of idea there that this spirit is a spirit of ecstasy and so forth. So read The Golden Bow. It will say it in there, but it does refer to the Jack in the Green as a spirit of ecstasy and stuff like that, and it's very interesting. I can only go from working personally with the Jack in the Green, and I must say that it is a pleasure. It is more than a pleasure working with the Jack in the Green. I refer to him as a deity, I really do. I see him totally as a god form, but I also see him as a spirit as well. I see him as a very, very large spirit, and I also see him as a god of vegetation, of ecstasy, of euphoria, of partying, sex, fertility, ecstasy. I see him as a spirit of sort of freedom, of nature. Also as well, just to go back to nature, in a lot of modern environmentalist movements, they will have the green man as a symbol for, as a symbol for the the earth and sort of, you know, man linked within nature as well. So yeah, a lot of modern environmental movements will have his image there. Now another thing that's quite interesting as well, I mean, we're talking about working with him now, and I can only go from my personal experiences, that's all I can go about, is working with him. It was weird because I didn't, you know, because I knew that the idea of him being a spirit of ecstasy and euphoria and holding this Dionysian element was quite new. I didn't think it would be like that. I didn't think working with him would feel like that. But it totally did. It completely and utterly did, you know, and I don't see why not, because he is the spirit of festivals and parades and drinking too much and, you know, sort of life force and life and renewal, and, you know, so I can see that element there. And working with him, it's quite weird because on my altar, he's basically sort of, you know, I have my specific space for him, but he's basically sort of asked me to move all the things that are dead out of his way. So I have a lot of dead animal parts that I work with in my craft, and he's like, no, get it out the way. I can't do that. I don't want to see death. I don't, you know, and he is a bit like, you know, no, it's not death, you know, it's rebirth and creation and life, and, you know, he's very, and this is only personally as well, he's very anti-death. And not particularly anti-death. I'm talking anti-death as in the way of, it's not about death, it is morely about the rebirth, it's morely about the life that keeps going and going and going and going and going. And there's this idea as well, you know, of sort of life just going on and on and on and on and on, and just ever continuing through different life forms, you know. So it's going to sound silly, but recently, particularly to Beltane as well, I've actually been listening to a song called the Maypole Song, which is highly sort of associated with, you know, Beltane, because it's from the cult movie The Wicker Man, which is a very good film. If anybody hasn't watched it, they should totally watch The Wicker Man. And this song basically says, and in the woods there was a tree, and from that tree there was a limb, and from that limb there was a branch, and on that branch there was a nest, and in that nest there was an egg, and in that egg there was a bird, and from that bird a feather came. And then it goes on and says, and from that feather there was a bed, I believe, and on that bed there was a girl, and on that girl there was a man, and from that girl there was and from that man there was a seed, and from that seed there grew a boy, and from that boy there grew a man, and from that man there was a grave, and from that grave there grew a tree. So it starts over and over and over again, and there's that idea of renewal and rebirth, and I've been listening to it a lot, and although it's from a film, yeah, it totally just reminds me of the Jack and the Green and the Green Man, this idea of rebirth. You know, life will constantly keep going and going and going and going, and, you know, the idea of celebration and life force. I see the Green Man as a perfect union between nature and man. You know, I mean, currently in this world it's sad, but you know, a lot of people destroy nature, destroy the earth, and this represents, to me as well, he represents a symbol of not fighting nature, but going with it, being a part of it. He also represents as well, to me, that deep primal energy within us all, that sort of carnal, animalistic sort of energy within everybody, that is almost instinctive, that natural, wild, sort of crazy part of everybody, you know, that crazy part of ourselves, and he to me is a perfect embodiment of that. Whenever I work with him, it's very phallic as well. I see images of the phallus a lot. Some witches I've known offer him their seed as well, you know, sexual fluids as well, because it's seen as an offering of life force, and he likes that life force. It's really weird as well, but when I started working with him, I would rub his nose after working with him. And then I found out through a couple of sources as well that a lot of people would have, you know, before they went to church, or I believe it was after, but they would have rubbed the nose of the Green Man. They would have rubbed this for good luck. So yeah, there's that element there still of older pagan branches and older pagan ways that are still there. A lot of trad witches particular will, well, not just trad witches, just a lot of witches really, will work with the Jack in the Green because they see him as a spirit of nature. So if you can get in basically with the spirit of nature, then he can twist nature for you and sort of, you know, make things happen. There are certain things, of course, that won't be within his sphere. But yeah, I'm trying to think as well other things. Another thing the Jack in the Green is associated with as well is springs, you know, like water and springs and cleansing as well. Don't actually know where this comes from, but I used to go to the Caduceus pagan and witchcraft festivals in London, and we used to have a Jack in the Green parade there, and then we would go to a park in London when there would be water fountains, and the Jack would dance around the fountains giving everyone blessing, and people would run through this water so that the water blessed them. It would cleanse them of any evil, of any hurt or upset, and grant them luck and blessings for the year ahead. A lot of us then as well, at the end of the Beltane bash, the whole thing, the Jack in the Green would be sacrificed as well, and his leaves would be given to everybody. And a lot of people would go home and sort of put these leaves on their altar as well as a sort of, you know, holding Jack's energy and the spirit of the Green Man on there. I think I've said all I need to say. There's a lot of information, I'm sorry. But yeah, also can I say as well, as I mentioned before, the Jack in the Green and the Green Man and John Barleycorn and the Green George and the Woodwose as well. The Woodwose also comes from around medieval times or before, the idea of these hairy men, these wild hairy beasts that would roam the forests, and they were also known as wild men as well. So they, some medieval times thought, like, I believe, you know, they're a myth, but I do think what people would have been seeing here would have been spirits. And the wild man, the Woodwose, a lot of people believe that he was the old cavemen's, like the old cavemen from like Neolithic periods that just didn't catch up with the rest of the world. This is highly unlikely, but you know, it's a bit of fun, it's a good myth. But yeah, there's the Woodwose there as well. But all these different spirits are different entities. But today, in a lot of modern paganism, the Green Man, the Jack in the Green George is kind of all rolled into one specific entity. And a lot of those different entities are seen just as different aspects of that entity. So yeah, I'm going to shut up now because I've gone on. But I work with the Jack in the Green, so I love him and I think he's a dude and he's awesome. So that's a little bit about the Jack in the Green. Take care, and I hope over the Beltane period, I hope you all have an amazing Beltane and a celebration of life and renewal and rebirth and sex and fertility. And summer's coming, you know, barbecues, beach parties and, you know, camping out and, you know, sort of just, summer. You know, summer's here. So I love summer. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to shut up now because I'm being a douche. But summer's coming and it's going to be awesome. So have an awesome Beltane and an awesome time. And I hope you guys like.